Welcome into Bengals Breakdown. We are going to look at some top free agent targets for the Bengals in free agency and on opposing teams' practice squads. With the NFL trade deadline come and gone, and in classic Bengals form, no trades made. Before we get into that, grade the Bengals roster for me right now. A, B, C, D, or F. How do you feel about how this Bengals team is constructed as we get into the meat of the playoff push? A familiar face to begin the first free agent targets. That's La'el Collins, who I do want to kind of do an update of what's going on here. He had worked out in October with the Giants and Jets, allegedly. That was on October 10th or something around those lines. Been almost a month now, and no signing, no real buzz, no real updates. It means one of two things. Collins maybe wanted some more money than what he was going to get offered by those teams. He has some guaranteed from the Bengals with the way that the injury guarantees work. Maybe he just didn't want to play for less than he thinks he's valued at. Or perhaps more likely, he still needs more time. When the Bengals cut Collins, I thought it was a pretty clear sign. They did not think he was going to be good to go for a while. We had said probably at least 2 months. Well, now we're up into that 2-month time frame here for La'el Collins to be able to play. In the event of injury on the Bengals side, you could always put the phone back and said, hey, La'el, want to come play for the vet minimum? Maybe $1 million over the rest of the season. The Bengals have options on the offensive line. From a depth perspective, knowing it's bad everywhere, Bengals actually have better bodies. Deontay Smith, Cody Ford, I thought subbed in fine in the one game he had to play. I don't want to play Jackson Carman, but, that's just how it tends to go these days. So I would not be opposed if there's injuries or if La'el says, I just want to be on a practice squad somewhere. If the Bengals could revisit that and have it make some sense. But I'm not putting him on my 53-man roster because he's still, I don't believe, healthy at this stage. I'm sure we'll get some more updates around him in the near future. But the whole massive interest reports were never, that was from Collins' camp because agents know how the game works. So would you bring back La'el Collins? Y for yes, N for no. We'll make it today's pinned comment because why not? So if the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. On to some bigger positions of need. How about tight end, Cameron Brate? It is not a good group of free agent tight ends, so bear with me on that when I show you a guy who has hit 300 yards once in the past 4 seasons. I know it's not very good. He's not much of a blocker anymore. Cameron Brate, the former Bucs tight end, longtime Buccaneers tight end, by the way. Kind of an under 9-yard per catch player. He had the one fun fantasy run. You guys remember that? A brief little run for Cameron Brate around the time O.J. Howard was there in Tampa 2. He's a free agent. He's just not very good either. Not a great group of tight ends. Brate stands out. So too does Maxx Williams, the former second-round pick out of Minnesota, who has spent most of his career, all of it, with the Arizona Cardinals. Showed some flashes at times, but hasn't been good. He really fell out of favor last year. And the kind of injuries have been a real problem. There was the one flash year again a couple seasons ago, and the consistency has never been there. So, hey, this is why they called up Tanner Hudson, because the practice squad group or the free agent grouping is not particularly good at this stage. So do the Bengals need to add another tight end? Even just practice squad option for the time being. 1 for yes, 0 for no. Sound off in the comments section. How about some running backs? Since, you didn't add Samaje Perine like I wanted. Chase Brown is on IR. How about a familiar face in sexy Rexy Burkhead? He offers some third down value. I think that's what you're going for, right? He can still catch the ball out of the backfield. He could probably still do special team stuff for you, even though he's pretty old at this stage. I think that would carry value. I think we're about 3 years removed from Rex Burkhead being able to really help and contribute in a meaningful fashion, but knows the organization and can do some of the things you're looking for behind Joe Mixon if you just want that third down role that was so important that they never found a way to fill. J.D. McKissic also up here. Now, he was coming off the neck injury last year. Haven't heard much buzz about what the status is of that neck injury, but he got a big offer from the Bills before he re-signed in Washington. He had a good 2020 campaign. Remember, he had 80 catches that season. which is kind of crazy to think about there. PPR nightmare, right? Like, not actually that good of a running back. He had 365 yards and on 85 touches in that time frame, which was, it's 4.3 yards carried. It's fine, but 80 catches, kind of a de facto slot receiver. Missed some time in 2021. The numbers dipped. But if you want a third down back, again, McKissic does stand out. Some other names of, it's just not a good group, man. It's November. It's what happens, right? Mark Ingram, Caleb Huntley, Ronald Jones off his suspension because he wasn't going to make the Cowboys roster anyway. Duke Johnson, another third down merchant. Tevin Coleman, Darrell Williams as well. The practice squad is going to have some more intriguing targets here, but we'll get to that later on in today's show, which is made possible by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the largest independently owned DFS platform in North America. The easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's you against the numbers. They also, by the way, offer the reboot policy. So your entries stay in play even if one of your guys gets injured. Football, basketball games, if you have a player who exits the first half, does not return, the player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only DFS platform with an injury insurance policy because nothing sucks worse than having a fantastic slate of picks and then one guy got hurt and it ruined it all. That's really annoying. That's why I like Prize Picks. My picks this week. Give me Joe Burrow, more than passing yards. I love it against a not very good Bills secondary. Isaiah Pacheco running all over in London over a not great Dolphins run defense. That's going to be a fantastic football game, though. And more than CeeDee Lamb receiving yards against the Eagles secondary, which is also not that great. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Link will be in the comments and the description of today's show. It's prizepicks.com/CLNS. Wanted to make note of Andrew Norwell here, the offensive lineman. Again, if you really don't trust Cordero Volson and you want to find a guard piece you could call, I did reach out to some of my Commanders, media members, or friends, I should say, as well, and be like, hey, what's the status of Norwell? Yeah, the numbers aren't looking that great from 2022. They cut him, these injury issues. What's going on there? I'm like, one to Lincoln Riley's brisket. How cooked is he? Very was the response. So not the route you want to go. A lot of these names we're discussing are players that could be injury replacements if you lose somebody else, or practice squad addition. Another familiar face, Liam Jackson III, who was good in Cincinnati for a while and then, got paid and kind of fell off a little bit from that perspective. Spent some time with the Commanders and the Steelers, but in the end barely played anything in 2022 and has had a few workouts since then, which, again, when you get to the workout and then no one signs you, makes me think the results weren't what the team was hoping for. But if you want a veteran, that is one of the better cornerback options out there. How about defensive line pieces with some minor bumps and bruises and just some depth concerns there? Matt Ioannidis, the defensive tackle, at one point I thought was one of the more underrated players in the NFL. Back to 2019 with the Commanders, 64 tackles, 8.5 sacks, 11 TFLs, was great in 2018. And then, he hasn't combined for those numbers outside the tackles in the last 3 seasons. Injuries a factor, was never the same after the 2020 injury, which was, I know, very frustrating and disappointing. If you're worried about the limited impact from Miles Griffin, had a good tackle, by the way, against the Niners, Joseph Asai, or an injury there, Terrell Basham. Remember, he was a member of the Bengals this preseason. Has kind of been the 5th or 6th edge everywhere he's been. Sometimes leads to 3.5 sacks. Jets and Cowboys briefly. The Titans had him for a little bit last year, and Bengals picked him up, and he was never all that likely to end up making the team in the end. Now, we are 151 subscribers away from 5.5K. Hit that sub button for more free Bengals videos. We will be live again for Sunday Night Football. Might not be in time for kickoff. We'll be coming in from our Cowboys coverage, but we'll be around not long into the first quarter. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/Bengals TV. Finally, how about Melvin Ingram? If you want an edge, Ingram keeps doing the same thing over and over and over again. Despite being old, he pretty consistently, minus a not great season in 2020, he can get you 6 sacks still. He did it last year with the Miami Dolphins. Did it in 2019 with the Chargers. Chiefs and Steelers, the pressure rates were solid. The sack numbers just weren't quite the way it wanted to be. And he was actually better down the stretch for KC than he was in Pittsburgh. And there are some notable veteran pass rushers on the market. A familiar face, Carlos Dunlap and Wyatt Ray and Jordan Willis. Funny, right? Robert Quinn, Bruce Irvin, Tack McKinley. Those guys are kind of bordering on cooked, but they are somewhat familiar faces that could help you if you needed some pass rush boost. Let's talk practice squad. I'll go 15 names deep here. Names you might be familiar with, right? Leonard Fournette, the notable one, just signed with Buffalo leading up to the trade deadline. If you want to poach these guys, have to put them on your active roster. Melvin Gordon is not doing anything in Baltimore, kind of washed up. Technically speaking, Darrell Henderson is a practice squad guy. Despite playing a pretty big role for the Rams with Kyren Williams banged out, he is a practice squatter. Tony Jones has also played some real NFL games this year with the Saints. He's now a member of the Cardinals organization. And Kenyon Drake is now just recently signed with the Browns, which took him off of the practice squad list as well. 10 more names to go, but name a player who you want to sign. Could be to the practice squad, could be to the active roster. Available players only, of course. Name that player right now. Tight end options. You can bring back Devin Asiasi. Doesn't move the needle for me. Tyree Jackson, that's the Buffalo quarterback. You guys remember him? Who Madden had rated higher than Josh Allen when they were first-year players? Yeah, that happened. Yeah, it's a joke. Zach Kuntz. A lot of people like Kuntz coming out of the draft. He had some toughness and medical issues that caused him to drop. He's on the Jets practice squad. Anthony Ferksker is blocked and could help out in that area, but you have Drew Sample. Dalton Keene, it looks like a fake mustache, but it's real. Former third-round pick, but again, he's kind of bounced around. Other positions that aren't your big needs of running back and tight end. Darian Kennard, Logan Stenberg, some Kentucky boys who I think could help, but again, they're practice squad O-linemen, so something's up there. Familiar face, Raymond Johnson III. He didn't want to stay in Cincinnati. Made me sad. Deidre Sennett, the defensive tackle from Tampa, former third-round pick. And Malik Reed, the Pastors, had some success previously, most notably in Denver, but has kind of bounced around since then.